Welcome to the revolution.
We're going to talk about Putin's speech on the food shortages. All right. So this was a back and forth conversation with somebody who I don't know who they are, but his name is Pavel Zarubin. And he says to Vladimir Putin, he says, "Mr. President, we have just followed your meeting with the head of Senegal, who is also the current leader of the African Union. He expressed, and actually in the past week, many countries have expressed concern, not so much about the food crisis, but they are afraid of large-scale famine because world food prices are climbing, and so are oil and gas prices. These issues are interrelated. Naturally, the West blames Russia for this too. What is the real situation at this point? How is it developing? And what do you think will happen in the food and energy markets?" Okay, what a great question. I think that was phrased very well. And Vladimir Putin begins to respond. Now, the way that Vladimir Putin responds is he says, "Yes, indeed, we are seeing attempts to place the responsibility on Russia for developments in the global food market and the growing problems there. I must say that this is another attempt to pin the blame on somebody else. But why? First, the situation with the global food market did not become worse yesterday, or even with the launch of Russia's special military operation in Donbas in Ukraine. The situation took a downturn in February 2020 during the efforts to counter the coronavirus pandemic, when the global economy was down and had to be revived. The financial and economic authorities in the United States, of all things, found nothing better than to allocate large amounts of money to support the population and certain businesses and economic sectors. We generally did almost the same thing, but I assure you that we were much more accurate, and the results are obvious. We did this selectively and got desired results without affecting macroeconomic indicators, including excessive inflation growth. The situation was quite different in the United States. The money supply in the United States grew by $5.9 trillion in less than 2 years, from February 2020 to the end of 2021. Unprecedented productivity of the money printing machines. The total cash supply grew by 38.5%. 38.6, I'm sorry. Apparently, the U.S. financial authorities believed the dollar was a global currency, and it would spread, as usual, as it did in previous years, would dissolve in the global economy, and the United States would not even feel it. But that did not happen. Not this time, Vladimir Putin said. As a matter of fact, decent people, and there are such people in the United States, the Secretary of the Treasury recently said they had made a mistake. So it was a mistake made by the U.S. financial and economic authorities. It had nothing to do with Russia's actions in Ukraine. It is totally unrelated, Vladimir Putin says. And that was the first step, and a big one, towards the current unfavorable food market situation, because in the first place, food prices immediately went up. They grew. This is the first reason, he says. The second reason was European countries' short-sighted policies, and above all, the European Commission's policy in regard to energy. We see what is going on there. Personally, I, as in Vladimir Putin, believe that many political players in the United States and Europe have been taking advantage of people's natural concerns about the climate change, and they began to promote this green agenda, including the energy sector. So now he's pointing to the way that our government and political system is politicizing, global warming or whatever they call it now, okay? It all seems fine except for the unqualified and groundless recommendations about what needs to be done in the energy sector. The capabilities of alternative types of energy are overestimated. Solar, wind, any other types, and hydrogen power, those are good prospects for the future, probably. But today, they cannot be produced in the required amount, with the required quality, and at acceptable prices. And at the same time, Vladimir Putin says, they began to belittle the importance of conventional types of energy, including, and above all, hydrocarbons. What was the result of this? He says. Banks stopped issuing loans because they were under pressure. Insurance companies stopped insuring deals. Local authorities stopped allocating plots of land for expanding production and reduced the construction of special transports, including pipelines. All this led to a shortage of investment in the world energy sector and price hikes as a result. The wind was not as strong as expected during the past year. Winter dragged on, and prices instantly soared. On top of all of that, the Europeans did not listen to our persistent requests to preserve long-term contracts for the delivery of natural gas to European countries. They started to wind them down. Many are still valid. Now we have a couple paragraphs left on this portion. Many are still valid, but they started winding them down. This had a negative effect on the European energy market. The prices went up. Russia has absolutely nothing to do with this. Now, it's interesting how, thought out this conversation has been. What he's pointed to so far was the shutting down of pipelines, the printing of 38.6% of our overall currency, as well as the downturn of contracts sent out and loans being sent to energy companies, all causing this rise in global prices and food shortages. Now it says that, but as soon as gas prices started going up, fertilizer prices followed suit because gas is used to produce some of these fertilizers. Everything is interconnected. As soon as fertilizers prices started growing, many businesses, including those in European countries, became unprofitable and started shutting down altogether, Putin said. The amount of fertilizer in the world market took a dive and prices soared dramatically, much to the surprise of many European politicians. However, we warned them about this, and this is not linked to Russia's military operation in Donbas in any way. This has nothing to do with it. But when we launched our operation, our so-called European and American partners started taking steps that aggravated the situation in both the food and fertilizer production markets. By the way, Russia accounts for 25% of the fertilizer market. As for potash fertilizers, now this is a translation from somewhere, so there's probably a little bit of funky little verbiage here. When it comes to potash fertilizers, Russia and Belarus account for 45% of the world markets. This is a tremendous amount. The crop yield depends on the quantity of fertilizers put into the soil. As soon as it became clear that our fertilizers would not be in the world market, prices instantly soared on both fertilizers and food products. Because there are no fertilizers, it is impossible to produce the required amount of agricultural products. One thing leads to another, and Russia has nothing to do with it, Putin says. Our partners made a host of mistakes themselves, and now they are looking for someone to blame. Of course, Russia is the most suitable candidate in this respect. Okay, so that is Vladimir Putin's opinion as to why we are potentially running into food shortages, why our gas prices are soaring to the point where, everybody's starting an OnlyFans, and showing themselves, I'm going to start an OnlyFans and literally just go to the gas pump and just, metaphorically get fucked there. Maybe people will fund my gas adventures that way. If I start at OnlyFans where you literally just go to the gas station and show yourself at the gas pump, it probably suits the platform. Anyways. So I thought that's interesting. He went pretty in depth there around the macroeconomics as to why he believes we're having an energy crisis, why he believes gas prices are soaring, at least on this side of the world, and why these potential famine conversations are coming up. Okay. Now he pointed to a lot of things there, right? The fertilizer market is an interesting one. It's not one that, I've heard anybody discuss surrounding this. The energy crisis regarding, the way that he explained it about wind, solar, and all of the other ways that we're looking to kind of expand on these, the electric market for electric vehicles. Yeah, that's all fine. But even if we, literally everybody got an electric vehicle at this point, where's that power coming from? Where's the electricity coming from? Because what I saw was there was I believe it was a senator was getting questions surrounding where, she was like boasting about how a certain percentage or somebody, basically started with electric vehicles. And after being questioned, they found that the only way that they're able to actually supply enough energy for the electricity for these vehicles was through coal. Like natural gas, like what? It's just trading one thing for the other.